Turn to energy.
No. I like it, but not quite yet. Let me go back. Let's stop. Enzymes have they differentiate. So everyone's born with only so many enzymes in them. Enzymes are the magical piece that is a catalyst. So it starts every chemical reaction, special biochemical reactions in the body. So enzymes will differentiate. You're only born with so many of them. They'll either go into digestion or metabolic function, which is basically every metabolic function in your body needs enzymes to function properly. So if I have my enzymes, do I want to differentiate them into digestion and clean up a crappy meal that I just ate? Or do I want them to be involved in metabolic function like they should be? Right? Makes sense? And the other thing is your white blood cells. What do they ultimately do? White blood cells, macrophages in particular, what is their main responsibility? They hunt down tumors. They hunt down cells that aren't replicating properly. Everyone can be diagnosed with cancer 7 times in their lifetime. That's what the studies show. But the body's able to find the cancer cells and kill them naturally. They're also, whenever you have white blood cells, they also look for cells that are not replicating appropriately. So basically you can have tumors and everything that's happening constantly within the body. So if my white blood cells are responsible for going around detecting and destroying cells that are not forming properly, is that a good thing? Yeah. So do we want our white blood cells to be looking for cancer and tumors, or do we want them digesting our fast food? Right? So what we want to do is ultimately want to shift the emphasis away from digestion, away from the leaky gut, back towards what does best, and that's killing cancer and creating health through finding foreign invasion and killing it off. We have a natural ability to heal. So we talked about that from the very beginning. So in order for us to do so, we have a couple of steps we have to take now. First and foremost, we have to get the killing off the fire. The intake and what we do right off the bat is going to be dietary modification. Whenever we talk about purification, the idea is we have to take the killing off the fire first. We have to modify the diet in order for us to get any type of healing to take place within the gut. Prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes are the 3 big things that we like to use. Prebiotics gives the food for the good bacteria. Probiotics is the good bacteria. And then digestive enzymes helps take off the toll from our enzyme potential so we can get back to metabolic function. Okay?
Question?
Yes.
Do prebiotics assist the probiotics,
Yeah.
or is it the other way around?
It's the prebiotics is the food. The probiotics is the actual bacteria. The prebiotics is the food that feeds them. So what we do is we plant it. We start to replant or get the culture or get the colony back in the gut. And we have to do so by planting them and feeding them.
So if you're going to do one, you should be doing the other.
You should be, especially if you're having issues. You can do probiotics as well, but we like to use the combination because you want to plant and you want to feed. Yeah. Okay? So here's a good example would be, going back here, is this situation would be Crohn's disease. And you ultimately could say almost every digestive problem goes back to the same mechanism. But Crohn's disease is, this takes place, and then over time you have 80% of all your immune system is found in here. So what do you think your immune system is going to do when this is taking place? And say your immune cell's right here. What's it going to do? It's going to start to fight this, right? And as it fights it, it causes inflammation in the gut. That's where the symptoms are coming from. So what do you think the medical or the approach would be as far as a mechanistic approach? What do you think it would do here? They use corticosteroids that cause anti-inflammation, so you stop bloating and stop with the gas and stuff, which are all the symptoms and signs that there's a problem there. And then eventually, once the effects of that are no longer effective, then what do we do after that?
Just take out parts of it.
They cut out the chunk that is diseased, and then they'll fuse this back together. And meanwhile, all the kindling is still being put on the fire. None of the changes and none of the universal principles that we need to take place are occurring. So what's going to happen? The person's going to continue to not only be sick, but it's probably going to go to a different area. So over time, this doesn't fix anything. But in order for us to fix it, we already know we have to recognize the mechanism first. So once again, we take the kindling off the fire through dietary modification, and then we add things back into the body that's going to help rebuild and restore. So bone broth, the things that we like to use are going to be bone broth, which is usually like chicken bone, beef bone broth. Bone broth has collagen and it has gelatin, which both heal and seal the gut lining. We like to do steamed vegetables. Steamed vegetables already are broken down, so they're much easier to absorb. And you have to get the vitamins and nutrients from and the minerals from vegetables, and that's essential. We talked about probiotics, but we could actually do it, go above and beyond that, and we do fermented foods. Fermented foods actually have the good bacteria in it. And this is the way that mankind has preserved foods for the entire existence of mankind until just in the early 1900s when we started to get mass production of food. At that point, we want to sterilize everything. And we can have a whole talk about the germ theory and the fact that good bacteria are actually beneficial and can be found and be produced naturally. And if you have enough good bacteria, just like in the gut, the bad guys can't live. So the good bacteria actually preserves your food. So a root cellar, for example, is a good example of how we always used to keep our food because we wanted to keep it to where it was within the range that the good bacteria could thrive. And the better, the healthier they are, the more preserved the food would be. So fermented foods would include kimchi, sauerkraut. There's essentially almost every salsa used to be made this way. Almost every society has a way of preserving their food without sterilizing it. So you have the good, healthy bacteria in it. And we want that, obviously, to feed our gut flora. Coconut oil. Coconut oil not only is what we should be using for cooking, especially in any high temperatures, but ultimately coconut oil is antibiotic, it's antifungal, and it will kill off the bad guys that start to live in these areas. And then grass-fed beef and wild-caught fish are both high in omega-3s, and they're actually anti-inflammatories. So grass-fed beef should be the only way that you take beef at all. Right? Do you guys have any questions about any of that? No? All right, no questions? All right. So just a couple of side notes then. Whenever we talk about the fats, the fat intake should be omega-6 should be 1-to-1 ratio with omega-6 to omega-1. Should be 1-to-1 ratio. Now, we live in a society where we are bombarded by omega-6s. So the average American gets somewhere between 25-to-1 up to 50-to-1 ratio between omega-6s and omega-3s. So that's why we hear the benefits of fish oil, the benefits of hemp oil, the benefits of different things that have high omega-3s as an anti-inflammatory. It helps bring that balance back because we are so lopsided when it comes to the fat intake. Okay? Any other questions at all?
I use a lot of coconut oil.
We do.
I do, and my doctor doesn't like that because he'll tell you it's too high in fat.
Yeah, you know what, have your doctor give you some information that actually proves that, because ultimately you need saturated fat in your body, and in particular, saturated fat is what makes up your nervous system, your brain, and it's essential for normal function. And with that 1-to-1 ratio, you have to get it in somehow. We find that the whole saturated fat thing has been nothing but politicized, and it's all media, just like a smear campaign. That's not true. One of the worst things that ever happened to our heart health in our society is when our World War II guys came back, healthy soldiers came back, and they started dropping dead of heart attacks. My grandpa died of a heart attack. My uncle died of a heart attack, and they all was dietary induced. So when these guys came back, they started using vegetable oils and really high fats, but it's fats that are unhealthy. So a lot of the things that we've heard, whether it's Crisco or margarine, all those different things have destroyed our health. To this day, it's silly, but it's, we still have people that think that margarine is better than butter.
Oh, my goodness.
And margarine literally is one molecule away from plastic. But we live in a society where that's all bought and paid for. This information, what we share with you guys tonight, some people consider this controversial. But we say this is a 200-year march when it comes to getting the truth to the people. We're like 200 years before our time in a lot of ways. So if you want, and I know you guys don't want, and I don't want to make this like a snarky comment, but we say that you dig your grave with your fork. And you can either listen to this information and be receptive to it and start to become empowered, or you can follow the nightly news and follow your friends and family. And I personally had no choice, because if I was to follow my friends and family, that'd be following them the disease and everything else goes along with that.
We'd lose you too soon, Doc.
Yeah, we don't want that. So what we talk about is we say that the truth doesn't have to be defended; it just has to be shared. I don't need to sit here and like, oh, you need coconut oil, blah blah. Yeah, you know what? If you don't want to use it, don't use it. If your medical doctor doesn't want to use it, that's fine. I would really wonder how healthy he is, but that's not my business. But just we have to share the truth. And part of sharing the truth is your body stupid or is it smart? What do you guys think? It's smart. So we want to share that with people. We want to show them there's actually a mechanism. There's actually a reason why things are happening. This isn't a chaotic universe. We're not doomed to having health problems. We don't wither away with age. We all make choices. We've been convinced from day one that our body is dumb and that we have to rely on medication to help mask symptoms to feel better or whatever. We're going to talk, we already talked tonight about a mechanism, and therefore it starts to show that there's a reason why these things are happening. It's not just bad luck. It's not just genes. The fact is that genes cannot explain the increases of medications. It cannot explain the increases of high blood pressure and heart disease and stuff. It's happening so quickly. It's not just a genetic thing. We're talking about, we have leaky gut, toxemia, intestinal permeability, auto-intoxication. We're talking about mechanisms here that take place. This is just one of many things. We could talk about Alzheimer's. We could talk about how the Alzheimer's ultimately is diabetes type 3. So it's insulin resistance in the brain. Well, what's the other way that your brain can, or your body can live? Does it just have to burn sugar for food or for energy? There's another way of burning energy.
Fat.
Fat, thank you. So coconut oil is another example, another thing that the coconut oil does is it bypasses the mitochondria having to burn sugar. So then you start to take insulin out of the equation. So people can literally burn fat. We call it ketosis. So you can burn fat as energy. And when you do so, you start to lower the sugar levels down, which also lowers inflammation down, which ultimately lowers your insulin down. And then you're going to start to avoid diabetes, which is insulin resistance, meaning that there's so much sugar constantly in your body that the insulin, after a while, knocks on the door to let the sugar in. Your cells are like, I've had enough. Thank you anyway. It becomes resistant to that. And at the ultimate, will start to, the cell will die off. So we want to bypass that. We call it mitochondrial metabolic therapy. And that is switching the mitochondria away from fatting or burning sugar exclusively towards burning fat. And we get weight loss with that. We get cognitive improvement. It's helped with Alzheimer's, and the research is all out there and it's shown. Another thing is if you have two different cells, this is a normal cell. And the normal cell has one receptor for sugar. The normal cell has one receptor for sugar. If we look at a tumor is actually is a modified cell that has just turned into its own entity. How many sugar receptors do you think are in a tumor cell? 46. So what's it using? It's using sugar as its fuel. And how does it do it? It does it in very, very low oxygenated states. It loves low oxygen. It loves high mucus. It basically doesn't use mitochondria. It uses fermentation to fuel it. So it takes sugar from your bloodstream. It has 46 receptors to fill up, to basically plug into the cell itself, and it uses the sugar to ferment for energy. So it grows off of your sugar supply. Have you guys ever heard of a PET scan, PET? Mm-hmm. What do they use to find tumors with this? A PET finds tumors. What do you think they use to find them with? Sugar water. You put sugar water in, you're able to get an image off of it because they add dyes in there as well, and that sugar will go right to daddy.
I didn't know
And it feeds it and it lights it up. They find cancer from using sugar. Cancer has turned into a monster, but it's ultimately it's adaptation. It's going to say, all right, you don't give me any oxygen, you just bombard me with sugar. I have already had DNA issues with replicating. It's replicating inappropriately because my DNA has been scrambled. So now I have this entity that's just growing into a monster, fed by sugar. Now, what do you think we want to do right away would be what? Who would we want all after this guy? Boom. Our man. White blood cells, macrophages in particular, they come in, and we have it on electron microscope where we can show you guys where we'll show this quite often. You can see through electron microscope white blood cell. Well, first the T cells come in and they mark it, say this guy needs to be eaten, and the macrophages literally come in and they eat it from inside or from outside in, and it will completely eat the cell off, except for what would be a case where this would not be getting eaten.
When you eat sugar.
Or if your macrophages are doing other things like digesting. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we want these guys to fight the fight.